Welcome to the Spirit of Independence. On today's episode of the Spirit of Independence, we look at the work of Liam Regan. Liam's love of exploitation films and trauma back catalogue has led him to develop his own feature film Banjo, funded purely through crowdfunding sites. Liam really is the Kickstarter Kid.
My name is Liam Regan. I'm an independent filmmaker from South Yorkshire and I'm a writer and director.
What was the first thing that got you into filmmaking?
Filmmaking, I guess it was the time I actually purchased The Toxic Avenger Part 2 from Blockbuster Video. It was in the $2.99 X rental pile, and I picked it up and I watched it, and I was disgusted with the amount of ultra-violence and sex and car crashes and mutations. And the thing about it was, it was done on a low budget, and I'm like, wow, if these guys can do it on such a low budget, then I guess I can do this as well. And I guess that inspired me to start looking at other independent features, because I was only really accustomed to Hollywood movies and what were coming out at the video store and also at the cinema. So it made me look at the back catalogue of titles of, like, let's say, full moon movies and trauma movies. I guess that inspired me to write and make the films that I do today.
He's coming soon. The Toxic Avenger, Part 2.
Well, I first got a Laserdisc player in 1995, and Laserdiscs, they're basically, if people don't know, think of them as like 12-inch DVDs, and basically halfway through the movie you had to flip them around. With Laserdiscs, though, they had such things as audio commentaries, and by that, you could listen to the filmmaker, speak about the movie, which is just the norm today. But back in the mid-90s, it was actually a rare thing to get. So from audio commentaries, I kind of learned the craft of filmmaking, and just started watching more movies, and looked at auteur filmmakers in the genres that I love. Filmmakers, let's say, like Lloyd Kaufman, Frank Henenlotter, and Michael Herz.
Whereabouts did you, or how did you approach making your first film, and what was it?
Right, my first film must have been, I think, back in 1996. At the time, they had such things as a Tyco video camera, which is kind of like a video camera for kids. And you could basically, with the two wires connected to the video, and whatever you filmed, it was all analog, you'd film it onto the VHS tape. And back then, I kind of pirated videos for my friends, because back then my friends didn't want to spend, let's say, £15 on The Toxic Avenger or Romeo and Juliet. So I used to actually edit the films from like a SCART-to-SCART analog videotape. And through that, I actually learned how films were cut and pacing and narration. And from there, I studied moving image in college and just started making films of, let's say, an exploitation nature.
Talk us through some of the films that you've done. Just tell us the title, when you filmed them, and a brief bit about the plot as well.
Sure. So I guess when I started college, this 2001, I filmed a short film called Family Affair, which is like a 5-minute short film about a man who was on the phone to his father, who's talking to a doll who believes is his mother, and they were having a sexual affair. From there, I actually wrote a short film called Confessions of Adolf, about a student in school called Adolf Hitler and how people perceived him. The idea of that was I wanted to mess around with the audience in calling a character called Adolf Hitler, and then for the audience to actually feel sympathy for such a name of the character. From there, Banjo. We started shooting in November 2011. Only problem with that shoot is we were using friends as actors and they didn't turn up, and it was kind of hard just to get everyone on the same page. So in Easter 2012, we actually shot Banjo over a 4-day period, and that went on to play film festivals like the Trauma Dance Film Festival in New Jersey. It played the Cochise Film Festival in Retford back in 2012. And from that concept, from, I guess, from my hero Lloyd Kaufman of Trauma Films, he kind of inspired me to take the concept of Banjo and make it into a feature-length production.
There's some quite shocking scenes in it, quite exploitative scenes, if you like, and quite explicit as well. Do you approach it looking to get shock tactics in there, or is it something that's more kind of subconscious, you just think it's a natural thing to do, or is it an intentional thing to kind of play with your audience in that sense? I don't believe, I can see how people can find scenes in Banjo as shocking. I've always been interested in taboos, and I've always been interested in writing films that I guess the studio system wouldn't like to approach. I think with horror as a genre, as an artist, it's good to push the envelope. I think it's good to deal with scenarios and situations that make the audience feel uncomfortable. I don't feel like there should be any boundaries. I guess I can see people seeing it as shocking. To me, I find it interesting, and I kind of write films thinking, what would I like to see on the big screen? And I guess being a genre fan and a fan of exploitation cinema, I'd like to see the genre push that envelope and go the extra mile. I think, not so much shocking an audience, but getting a reaction out of the audience is great, be it positive or be negative. They may hate the film, may love the film, but they won't forget the film. Yeah. So do you never kind of see a moral boundary or a boundary that you think, right, that's perhaps a step too far, or do you just think, right, I'll just go with what feels natural to me?
I feel like with filmmaking, as long as no one's being hurt and it's not an attack on any person, I feel like there should be no boundaries. I think art should be pushed, and I think it's interesting for filmmakers to... I think I'm tired of the Hollywood cookie-cutter horror movies of today, especially post-2005. There seems to be too many remakes, and I feel like they're playing it safe with the audience, especially with the abundance of, let's say, found footage movies. Found footage movies, I think, are great, but let's take it into like a different scenario. And I think that if horror filmmakers want to go further, they need to look what's out there and give the audience something different.
I'm sorry, sir. It's just that.
Sorry. Do you know what kind of pressure you're putting me under? Do you fucking know? Do you know what you're putting Deets here under as well?
Yeah, Peltzer. What's going off?
Banjo, the short film, cost around $3,000. I pretty much sold whatever I had and got the money from my day job. What we shot that on was a mini DV camcorder with a 35mm adapter with a lens, just to get the film look, because that's one thing I guess filmmakers have always been striving for before the advent of DSLR cameras, to try and get that film look somehow. With that, I contacted locations, tried to get them as cheap as I could. I gave them fake screenplays if necessary, because if I gave them a real screenplay of Banjo, we wouldn't get the location. And then I called upon friends to play the parts, because we had no money, we couldn't hire people, and we shot it over a 4-day period. With Banjo, using friends as actors can be sometimes a downfall with the quality. And also, I was cameraman, I did the lighting, I was directing, I was pretty much doing the special effects, I was doing everything. And I think with your first film, it's kind of hard to let go of the project and let other people come in to help. I think you've got to learn how to delegate. But at the end of 4 days, we got the footage, we edited it over a week period, and it is what it is as a short film. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Banjo. The shot, I crossed the line many times with the camera. The acting is very ropey, as well as the direction. But it was the concept, I guess, that inspired me to flesh it out into a feature.
Yeah, one thing I noticed with Banjo the short is that your lighting was very much artificial. You had a lot of reds and greens in there. Was that Was that a choice to make it look sort of unnatural in that sense?
I think with the lighting in the short film Banjo, it's very much inspired by films like Dario Argento, like Terror at the Opera, a lot of Italian 70s giallo movies, as well as films like Brain Damage by Frank Henenlotter and films like Basket Case. I do like that artificial look. So it's not really set in a certain time frame. It can be anywhere, and I like to create universes, and I like to play with lighting to set moods, and just the overall stylization of the movie.
Yeah, you brought in, I guess, the figure of Ronald Reagan into the story. Whereabouts did that come from? Ronald.
Okay. Ronald. I get this question all the time. Why do I put Ronald Reagan in Banjo? I guess my last name's Regan, and I like Point Break. I thought the mask looked pretty cool, so it was like a last-minute decision to put Ronald Reagan in Banjo in the short film. What I did with the short film Banjo, I took the characters that have already been established, that being Ronald Reagan, the lead character Peltzer, the boss Mr. Sawyer, and the lead female Dietz, which are all inspired by horror movies. We've got Peltzer from Gremlins, named after Billy Peltzer. We have Dietz, named after Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice, and Mr. Sawyer, which is Drayton Sawyer from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just took the characters and fleshed them out for the feature-length movie. I guess with the Ronald Reagan character, another thing that I wrote into that is he was known as the great communicator, and with Ronald Reagan being the imaginary friend of Peltzer, who manipulates him to shoot up his office, I believe I believe it to be a quite poetic portrayal of that character. Now, Ronald Reagan has been in a horror film before, David Arquette's The Tripper, which people keep reminding me of. No, I just like that imagery of a dead president manipulating a feeble British man.
Let me take you back. Back to where it all began. To a small town in New Jersey.
Speaking about Troma, obviously you've got this love of Troma films. And from my understanding, did you executive produce one of their films?
I actually wrote a draft for their latest movie, Return to Nukem High, which is now split into two movies, Return to Nukem High Volume 1 and Volume 2. They passed on my draft, however, I flew over to the States in summer 2012 to work on Return to Nukem High, Volume 1 and 2, as a production assistant and also a part of the movie as one of the stars.
How did that come about, where you managed to, I guess, get in contact with Troma and get a draft over to them? How did that develop?
I met Lloyd Kaufman back in 2002 at a Troma, I guess, convention or a Troma retrospective in Leicester. And through that, I kept in contact with Lloyd. I was, sending him my ideas for films. And he's always great for advice. And I think that's great when your hero is more like a mentor. And I told him that, look, I study screenwriting, I read books like Screenplay by Sid Field, Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, and I asked him, could I just take a look at the script and maybe I could shoot you over a draft. So I wrote a draft of Return to Nukem High, and even though they passed on it, he invited me to come out to actually work on the movie, which was the greatest experience of my life. We shot in Buffalo, Niagara in the States, and at least 60 of us stopped in an abandoned funeral home, and it was the greatest film school. It was great. I got to learn, different crafts, etc., how different departments worked, and it was the greatest experience I could get. It was film school.
So going on to the feature, at the moment you've shot a trailer for the feature, and you've raised finance. So just tell us about the process, how you've taken it from the short, I guess filming the trailer, and then how you've looked to raise finance for the feature.
With Banjo the short, I liked the concept, but I didn't like the execution. So I decided to flesh it out into a feature-length script. I studied I guess Banjo the feature-length production is inspired by, I'd say, Brain Damage meets Drop Dead Fred meets Basket Case. I took the imaginary friend element from the short film and I fleshed it out so it was a bigger universe. So I took the characters and placed them into a different universe, as it were. And I wrote a draft of the script, around 90 pages long. From that, I decided to create a fake trailer to then secure finance for the feature-length movie. So back in July of 2013, over a 6-week period, we took select scenes from the existing draft of the screenplay and wrote them into a trailer, which cost around, I'd say, $4,000. So it was $1,000 more than the actual short film. Prior to the trailer, I actually worked with Damien Mortar and Nicola Mortar on Safe House Pictures' The Esca trilogy, and through that movie we developed a friendship. So I had Damien come on board and David Pickering, who also works for Safe House Pictures UK, as director of photography to shoot the trailer. And we shot it in location in Barnsley and Rotherham, Wath-upon-Dearne, just basically around the Yorkshire district. And contacted actors this time. That's one thing I wanted to do over the short, was actually use actors. We all stopped in the house, and it was a fun little unit to actually make the trailer. It was exciting, and we used a lot of special effects. And we just thought, let's show people a showreel of what we can actually do for this movie. And we decided to go the crowdfunding route, because I think with crowdfunding with independent filmmakers, it cuts out the middleman and it gives you full artistic freedom. There's two popular crowdfunding platforms. There's the Indiegogo route or the Kickstarter route. We decided to go with Kickstarter, and within the first 2 days, in the first 24 hours, we actually raised $2,000 for Banjo, and we met our target. We actually just went over our target of $5,500. And it blew me away that the response that the trailer got. I honestly didn't know that people would dig it that much, I guess. And from that, I mean, it's only a partial amount, $5,000 for the budget. But with that, we're due to start principal photography in August.
How did you market Banjo the feature, or to get the finance for it? How did you get it out so people could see it and actually start donating to it?
Social networking is a filmmaker's friend. We contacted a lot of horror blogs, a lot of horror websites. We even did like a countdown for the trailer. We didn't really announce that we were making a feature-length version of Banjo or anything like that. We just did the trailer in secrecy, and then 5 days before the trailer debuted, we did a countdown. I hired a local artist known as Mila Kay to create the artwork. He actually created the artwork for the first short film as well, and we placed that out there. Rob Nevitt of Celluloid Screams asked if we'd like to show the trailer as a world premiere at the Celluloid Screams Film Festival in 2013. So we did a countdown to the world premiere, and it had a standing ovation. People received it very well. And then the next night, after the Celluloid Screams world premiere, it hit the internet, and I guess everyone really dug it because they shared it. And I think that's one thing for filmmakers is social networking. It's a great way to get your film out there the way you want it.
So I guess working in and around South Yorkshire, what other people have you come across? How do you see the scene developing? Have you got any ideas about where the scene can go?
Yeah, I mean, with the Banjo trailer, I guess everyone that worked on the trailer are filmmakers in their own respect. I mean, we have Damien Mortar, who played the role of Ronald Regan in the Banjo trailer, who also was the DOP on the trailer. He runs Safe House Pictures UK, that's done feature-length movies like the Esca trilogy, Book of the Dead, and they're coming out with The Day After Dark, which is a vampire movie. And with Safe House Pictures UK, I mean, that's Damien and Nicola Mortar. Nicola Mortar produces, a husband and wife duo, and they make beautiful looking independent movies on such a low budget. And you look at the Esca trilogy, it looks like it was shot for, let's say, a few million, and the budget for that was around $7,000. And it's great what you can do when people pull together as a community and offer their services. Like we had Bob as the sound guy, Robert Wingfield. He helps out in the Safe House for Pictures projects. We've got Brett Chapman, who I worked with on The Day After Dark. He did a short film called Lily. And David Pickering, who's like a camera operator, and he helps out on charity projects. So it's great that we all help each other and we all bring things to the fold. Like I say, Damien will help me out on my project, then I'll be first assistant director on his projects. And I think it's great as a community to pull together and just to make films.
What is it?
I don't know. Looks like some kind of journal.
You think they're still here?
Who?
Whoever wrote it?
Are you a writer?
More a documentarian.
The stories in your book, they're unbelievable.
An advice I give to an independent filmmaker is, if they wish to write and direct their own film, is to study the screenwriting craft, to study the hero's journey. I think that's one thing to master. Look at the beats of a screenplay, look at the plot points of a screenplay, and then find like-minded individuals that also share your same vision. Even if it's a crazy idea, even if it's out there, you need as much support as you can get. Forget the detractors. This is your story. I wouldn't compromise. I mean, if I was going to give advice to an independent filmmaker, never compromise your vision. Okay, if you believe in a project 110%, go for it. Don't care what anyone else says. This is, you're the artist. You make this film how you want to make it. So find like-minded individuals. Stick to your own idea. Like Shakespeare once said, "To thy own self be true." And then try and get a budget, or just try and make it for as much as you can, or else, I don't know, start selling things. Try and speak to investors. Make a fake trailer like I did. Start a crowdfunding platform. Either way, I think the best advice I can give to an independent filmmaker is just get it done. I mean, there's so many projects that I've abandoned over the years just because, one, I've just never finished them, or two, I'll lose interest. Find a great idea. Find an idea that no one else has ever done. Stick with it and see it through, the whole way. Just make sure, just make your own damn movie, as Lloyd Kaufman would say.